Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I'm going to work on a reel. It's from Herbert out in Washington. This is a reel that I think a lot of folks have. It's a very popular reel. This one's probably about 10 or 15 years old now. This is the Shakespeare Sigma. It's a large version. It's a 70, which means it's a saltwater size. We have a little bit of line tangle going on here, but overall this is a nice reel. And Herbert asked me if I couldn't tune that up for him and have it ready to go in the coming season. So I'm going to do just that. And I figured while I would do that, I would also show you how to do it in case you have one of these. As I mentioned, very popular reel. Kind of mid-value priced. I don't think they went much more than maybe $35 or $40. They're a very durable reel. And Shakespeare is part of Pure Fishing. So it's got good credentials behind it. Shakespeare is one of the oldest reel manufacturing companies, dating all the way back to the early 1900s when William Shakespeare designed the company. He was a watchmaker, and he decided to set out and make fishing reels. And you know, his company has endured for a century plus, almost 125 years. So don't be afraid of Shakespeare if you see it as a brand. And what we're going to do is show you how this one is made. We're going to start by taking the spool and the exterior pieces off. You do that simply by turning your tensioner counterclockwise. That'll remove it from the axle shaft. This is a reminder to all. You see that lining going on there and the twisting and the coiling that's going on? That's called line memory, and that's one of the reasons why I say when you tune up a reel, you should change the line on an annual basis, because that line just sits, it gets the memory, and then it just gets tangled as you go to fish it. And monofilament is inexpensive by some standards, by a lot of standards, and it's just not worth losing a big fish because you just didn't want to change the line. So go ahead and change that line at the end of the season when you tune things up. So while we're doing this, I want to thank all of our first responders and essential personnel and all of the people working to keep us safe. We couldn't be where we are without your efforts, and in particular your efforts to help us eradicate this virus and to keep us safe are much, much appreciated. This reel is frozen. It's not moving, so what we may find here is that I'm noticing rust on there. I'm noticing rust on all of the surface screws. We're going to find out why it's not working underneath. So we're going to remove the handle next. And we can see very dry, so it may have something to do with lack of lubrication. We even have rust inside the handle shaft. And then I want to check on this case here. So this case is not separated here. This case goes up under the rotor. So when it goes up under the rotor, the only way to get the side plate case off the check is to get the rotor off. And to get the rotor off, you want to remove these shims. There's two of them on here. I'm not trying to cut one in half if that's what you're thinking. But these have been pressed down pretty good. These keep the line level on the spool. So some of them will have one, some will have two, some will have more or less. It's an adjustment that the factory can't make in terms of the swing. So they make it using these shims, and that's fairly common on almost all spinning reels. All right, well, these are being stubborn, and there's probably a reason why that this reel is just sat, and the salt is accumulated. That's what's on the top shim here is salt. And if we have to break this off, we will, but we're going to be able to pull that off. That's number one. We're going to do it again. So some of you may have seen my video wishing all a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas, and holiday, regardless of what holiday you may be celebrating. It is a time for family and faith, and I hope everybody's taking the time to enjoy both. But in that video, I am offering a free service to all first responders. So if you're EMT, if you're in the healthcare trades, if you're doctors, nurses, hospital workers, if you're in the COVID wards or if you're behind the scenes, doesn't matter. What I would like to do for you is what I can do to make your life a little bit easier, and that is to service one of your fishing reels, to try and take the strain and the stress out of you every day, and to get you ready to go fishing if and when you get those off days. Okay, you saw me using a pliers to break this free. This is just a circle, and it sits on a little crimped portion of that axle shaft. Sometimes it's easier to get off than others. This one, as you can tell, is rusted, and I'm afraid that's what we may see inside the reel, but until we get that open, we won't know that. So next up then is a retention piece, but at any rate, I digress. Is that the right word? I'm offering a free service to anybody who's been involved in fighting the pandemic. Don't be shy. Send me your reel. I will tune your reel up. If it's a repair that's needed and parts are available, I will repair that reel for you. Doesn't matter what kind of reel it is. Maybe we'll even make a video of me doing that. We'll see if it's a reel that I haven't worked on before. And I will get that reel back to you. No charge, no gimmicks, nothing. Just a special thank you for what it is that you're doing. Okay, interestingly enough, I took that nut off and we're spinning again. So, okay. I'm not quite sure what that was all about, but let's keep going. We're on a roll, so to speak. Notice that you have an anti-reverse that came off here. So if you want to reinstall this without knowing that there was a little collar on there, it'd be a little, well, let's just say interesting. But this collar belongs on here, and it belongs in this little slot here. And we'll come back and service that in just a moment. This is your anti-reverse override, and I'm going to put that little arm into my tray. You'll notice I'm accumulating all the pieces and parts in that tray. And you've probably already noticed that I do wear a protective glove on my hand. Since all of this stuff is fairly dirty and on the rusty side, I'm just going to take a penetrating oil, and I'm going to give that a good hose down. I use this as a degreaser, as a cleaner, and in this case, just to free up any of that rust and the like. So this is really loaded, and that's why I wear a protective glove. And then if you just kind of work it, you'll start to hear the grinding going away, and you'll start to feel it getting freer as the stuff works its magic. So I'm just going to clean off the top of this. Get some of that old stuff out of there. I'm just going to let it sit on the side. Kind of like be a bench player. Just go over on the side there and wait your turn. All right. Now we've got to hope that these 4 rusted screws here can come out. So let's do that again. Let's just start it by putting a little bit of WD-40 or equivalent. In that case, that's not WD-40. That's a generic penetrating oil from Ace Hardware. I think it's called Lubies or something. Yeah, Luby, lubricant and penetrating oil. I haven't noticed much difference in penetrating oils for what I'm using it for. And what I use it for generally is what you're seeing here, degreasing and just freeing up some minor kind of stuff. But there's all kinds of stuff out there. I have one here. It'll probably be the next one I use. It's CRC Power Lube. I've used WD-40. I've used Liquid Wrench. I guess I use whatever's available on the shelf of the local hardware store when my can starts to run dry. And that's why you got CRC over there, because this Ace can is about ready to go. You see I'm getting more aerosol and less product, if you will, as I do that, but that's okay. All right, I'm laying my screws that I'm taking from the side plate. I'm laying them out on my desk here. And I'm doing that so that I make sure that the screws are all the same size. There are a lot of reels out on the marketplace that use different size screws in different positions on their cases, and it's better to identify them when you're taking them out than after you've thrown them in a bin trying to figure out on a reinstall where they go. It's also a good time to mention that if you're doing this without a schematic, which is what I'm doing, then take pictures along the way. That way you'll know that at critical junctures where certain pieces and parts belong, and that will certainly help you as you go to reinstall. In my case, my pictures are a video. You don't have to take video. You can use a cell phone camera. You can use other devices. You can use a regular digital camera. Heck, if you want, you can take a video, but you don't need to. All right, we want to try and separate this case now. I'm just using a utility knife, trying not to scar the case. Just slipping it into the cracks there to get that open. Now let's see what we have here. All right, we've got a shaft of the main bearing that it's turning. Doesn't appear to be turning very well, but it is turning. The inner bearing is frozen, so we have a situation where the inner roller is turning, but not the ball bearing. So here's a good try. Let's go ahead. One of my good buddies out there, and I'm going to forget the names, good buddies, sent me a can of Kroil, Kano Kroil, and it's the oil that creeps. It loosens frozen metal in parts. I've had success with this in the past. I was unsuccessful in opening this up very well. That's a wire nut that's actually covering the spout there. Kind of homemade ways to do things. But I'm going to put this on here, and I'm just going to let that soak. And we'll see if we can't free that bearing up over time. Let's go ahead and put that off to the side. I think we're going to find that same issue with the bearing up top. But before I get to that bearing up top, we got to remove that axle shaft. So we saw it moving before, so let's turn this. The inside is doing better here, quite honestly. So we're going to remove the axle shaft by removing the set screw below. And that is a Phillips head screw. And these are pretty stout. These are not cheaply made. They're in the value line, and it's not going to cost you $100 for this reel. As I mentioned, it's probably going to cost you $30, and that was 10 years ago. In today's marketplace, you can probably buy them for, I don't know, $10 or $15 used. I still think that they make the Alpha brand out there. The Alpha has been around a long time, just in various iterations. I have older Alphas out there that are metal cased and everything else. So it's just a standard. It's sort of like you know, the Chevy or the Ford brand. It's just got the Ford F-150 or whatever, been around 20 or 30 years, just different iterations. Well, that's the Shakespeare Alpha in that regard. Okay, just clean what little grease there was in there. That goes into the parts tray. We should be able to remove this main gear, and I'm thinking from the setups that I've seen, when I see a window like this, it tells me that I have a little fork for an anti-reverse override somewhere, and tells me I'm wrong. Well, there you go. I guess we're gonna we'll accept that it's on some, but not all. All right, I'm gonna clean this piece up then. You can tell long ago that this grease was in the teeth of the gears, and centrifugal force and everything else pulled that off to the side. Got it to nest in here, which does no good. Good example here, you just want to check all of the gear, make sure that the teeth are good, both there and on the inside. The inside level is the same. This is going to drive the crosswind gear, which just fell out. This is your crosswind gear. And you want to do the same thing here. You want to make sure that all these teeth are in place. They're not chipped, bent, warped, broken, or otherwise. And you want to do that because we felt the stoppage there. This reel was seized, and I'm not sure why. And I'm not sure why when I took the nut off, all of a sudden it started to work. But this is the way this meshes on the back side. So just be aware of that. So check all of the teeth here. We'll come back and lubricate that in a moment. At least we don't have to worry about freeing this bearing because it's not a bearing. It's a bushing. And this is a nice solid bushing. Appears to be brass, but it could be another alloy similar. But a lot of folks get into the debate about bearings versus bushings. Well, I'll tell you what, that didn't seize, and that's a bushing, right? All right, we'll come up top now, and we'll get at this second piece. So we took the spring that's going to operate this anti-reverse off. Notice that there's a collar underneath that, and notice that this collar's got a cone shape. It's not symmetrical, right? It comes down almost tapering in here like a funnel. Remember that the flat side is going up top when you go to reinstall that. Just these little craziness things that go on. Now this is spinning, but I'm not seeing the bearing spinning underneath, so we may have the same situation here. We're going to take the two mounting screws out of the collar that holds the pinion gear and bearing in place. Now we may not be able to get that bearing out, but this is a plastic graphite case, so chances are we will be able to get that out. But if you were on a metal case like the earlier pieces, it may be that that bearing rusts on, and then you would kind of do the same thing. Grab some penetrating oil or the like and work that out. Notice when you take that collar off that there's a flat side of that collar. This isn't completely round, and that flat side belongs to the anti-reverse arm side of this. So don't, if you install it the other way, it won't work. All right, here we go. Can we pull it out? Well, you really have to work at it, but yes, you can pull that out. We can see that there's grease and junk and grime and the like in there, so we're going to spray that down. Going to grab a cotton swab. I've tried to get away from the names that are copyrighted names that are generics, but sometimes you just can't, right? That's like calling a tissue a Kleenex, I guess, or calling a copy a Xerox, or calling a cotton swab that's not a Q-tip, But hey, my apologies to those that may be offended if I've called one by a trade name versus a generic name. All right, I'm getting the last of the grease off of that. Then I'm going to test this bearing here. Well, as I thought, we've got the same problem on this bearing that we do on the others. Now, this is frozen. You can see that it does spin, right? It's got the inner bearings are working, but not the outer race, and that's serviceable, right? You can use this. I don't know how much this reel has been used, but you can use it in that format. We're going to try and free it all up. We're going to let it rest, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll accept it as it is. But you really don't want to spend $20 on bearings on a reel that's worth $15, right? So if you can get by with using this, but the inside working, the inside race working, but the bearing seized on the outside, it's one step up from the bushing. And given the type of reel that this is, what did I say? You can live with it, right? The idea behind Second Chance Tackle is to give all this stuff a second chance, and we're going to see what we can do. There's minor movement. I'm taking a pick. I'm putting it between the seats of the bearings, and I am noticing that it moves a little bit. So my hope here is that with this, with a couple of treatments of that croil or however it's pronounced, we might be able to get that one spinning again. Let's see what we can do here. Now this one's more lock solid here, but again the inner bearing is working. So let's do this. Let's put some oil on that. Let's go get a cup of coffee, and let's come on back and see if we got anything that we can do here, or if we just have to say we're going to live with this. Okay, so I'm happy to report 1 out of 2, and I think I got the one that's important. That's the pinion gear bearing. I was unable to free this one. This is the side plate, but again, the internal race is working. So a little bit better than the bushing on the other side. This one's working. You can see it's turning now on both sides, right? You got the race. If you turn it and hold the inside, you'll notice that it's now turning. Through a lot of use of that croil and just kind of working it with this pin, we were able to free most of the junk out of there. My fear is this one's going to be noisy because of the rust. I guess if you wanted to spend the money to go get the new bearings, you could do that. But I'm just going to give it a final flush with some penetrating oil, clean up whatever dirt is in there, let it run through, and then we're going to reinstall that, put the reel back together, and we'll show you, hopefully we'll show you a reel that isn't frozen. So it may have been that this was frozen, I don't know. Sometimes it's just a mystery. But now we clearly have one running on both sides in terms of the race, which is fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and put this little guy back together then. And if you have that reel, you'll know how to service it completely. I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to pack this bearing with grease. I'm thinking that those frozen bearings there, they're going to be a little rough. So if I can just kind of overpack with grease, then better. I normally just oil bearings. I don't like to get anything in the way, but in this case, this may quiet it down, and it, well, they may not too, right? All right, that's one side of it. And, you know, we can just, I have a gloved hand on. You've seen me kind of with the mess. You can actually just kind of use your gloved hand to press that in. There are folks out there that make these fancy grease injectors for bearings and things, and they work too. You have that, but we're just going to overload that, and we're going to hope for the best in terms of that. While that goes on to here, we saw that when we took this off. This is some kind of, I call it pot metal or everybody's metal. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's one of the reasons why you'll see a value-priced reel. They won't be using brass or any of the more water-resistant materials. They'll just kind of press these things out. These are usually cast, not cut. And let's go ahead and put that back into the case here. Just going to take that, and since we got it out so fortunately, it should go back in. Yeah, that's what I thought. We're gonna have a noisy one here, but you know, it's going to be moving, right? It'll be better than it was. Okay, so even though I showed you that you can pack it, I just don't like a noisy bearing. There's no sense going through this piece, and I just happen to have a bearing that, well, fits. Doesn't happen all the time, but this one fits. So let's go ahead and put this one in instead. And having done that, I'm going to see if I can also get this one. I do have a bigger bearing here, and I may be able to do that as well. So and I'm just going to see if my other bearing works there. So the bearings are the same size. The question is, do I have another one of the smaller ones? Got lucky with one. Can I get lucky with two, right? And I believe I can. So we're going to replace the bearings in both of these. We're going to take the one out of the case, in addition to the one we've just put onto the main. And even though I said it doesn't make sense, well, I guess if I have the bearing, it's a little bit cheaper than going and ordering it and paying the $7 or $8 in terms of the shipping. That's what really kills you on these things. All right, we've replaced that, and this one actually spins nicely. So as I mentioned, we'll go ahead and load that up with oil. I much prefer the oil than I do the grease. We'll do the same thing here. We'll learn do that piece. We'll come back over here and install. This is Herb's lucky day. I'll take my two that are good, put those over there, get rid of that one. Get rid of this one, they're no good. Let's go back and find that collar. Remember when we said that collar, it's got that flat pointed section there. Those go that way. Get the two small tie-down screws. Chris right now is probably saying, I've got my money's worth out of that towel. Why don't you go and get that off your desk? And I'll do that in just a moment. So there's a lot of standard bearings out there. I can assure you that I did not order bearings in the past for Shakespeare. But a lot of these are standard sizes. It matters in a couple of regards how you do that. There's a width of a bearing, there's an inside diameter of the bearing, and there's an external side of the bearing. And even though you may not find parts availability for a particular reel, so for example, if you're looking for somebody to sell you parts on a Shakespeare reel from 2000, well, good luck, it probably won't happen. But if you go to a place like Boca Bearing or Smooth Drag, and you have those diameters, you have the inside race, or the ID, the internal diameter, the outer diameter or OD, and you have the width of the bearing, they can match you up. Oh my gosh. Herbert, your reel is going to be screaming. There's no question about it. And screaming in a good way, not the noisemaker that it would have been with that other one. All right, here's our crosswind block then. We want to do the same thing here. Make sure it's got good grease. You want to get some on the back where it's going to ride against the case. You want to get some into that inner circle where it's going to ride on the stud. You want to get some, this gets grease everywhere. You can't make a mistake greasing this up unless you don't put enough on anywhere. Get some on the teeth where it's going to ride with that back, and then you want to put it here where the crosswind block is going to ride. Then you can kind of put it over the middle of that stud there and press down. Oops, press down, and the grease is acting like a glue right now on my gloved hand. That's how you install the crosswind block. Bring that stud down to the bottom for the crosswind gear. Let's go over here then and make sure that we put the grease into the ride. You can put some on the side here where it's going to go up the wall. Turn it over, seat it over that stud, and that'll allow you to do the axle shaft. So that's the main part there. Here's your main gear. Just this grease is attracting all kinds of things. That's the tie-down screw for the axle shaft. Let's go ahead and do the same thing here. You don't have to get it on every tooth. When you rotate the gear, it will transfer the greases. Just get it on enough. As we saw before, you put too much on, it's just going to pool in the middle there. Get it onto the back side of this. And we can go ahead and take this and merge that in to the bushing. Make sure it's into the case there. Next step then would be to rebuild the top side. So remember what we said here. We had this cone-shaped funnel type of a device. Then when this came off, you didn't see this because it came off with the rotor, but this has got a kind of a right-hand turn, 90 degree. This is going to sit on your pinion gear, and it's going to nest in the little slot here. So there's a little stud that sits up here, creates a slot. That little wire line then is going to come in here and be nested, and this is how it's going to work. As you're turning, oh, we don't have enough pressure on it. When you have the pressure of the spool, it's going to open it up so that you can spin your reel, and as you go to back pedal, it's going to push it out. When it pushes it out, it's going to intersect with the ridges in the rotor here, and that's going to close down and create an anti-reverse. All right, this can go on then. That's all that's available or needed up top for your rotor service. Find the two flat sides of the rotor, mesh them with the flat sides on the pinion gear, press down, and grab your rotor nut. Wow. Just wow. I mean, that bearing is probably a better bearing, I would suspect, than what came with these, since the ones that came with these froze all up. But, wow. All right, there's one more screw that belongs up top, but I'm just going to see if I can't find it in a hurry. All right, we've got the, I did hand tighten that. I probably should tighten it down one more turn with the wrench here. Then you have the tie-down screw to prevent that nut from rolling. I have a magnetic tip screwdriver. It's not magic there. That's what's holding that screw on. It's okay for steel screws. It doesn't work on stainless steel screws, but it's okay for steel screws. All right, and then we're going to just reset this since it fell out before. I'm going to bring that stud down to the bottom, slip this underneath. That's your alignment for your crosswind block. Make sure that this axle shaft is clean. Once it is, you can put a little oil, you can put a little grease on the shaft. Don't put a lot on there because as it slides through the pinion gear, it will just get scraped off. It's a pretty tight tolerance there. All right, we're going to come in on the crosswind block. Let's see if we can show you this way. We're coming down now. We're going to push that in until you line up that hole for your little screw that wanted to run away on me before. That's your tie down screw. And we'll be able to close this up. So if you like what you see, I'm going to ask you please subscribe to the channel. That subscription keeps me and my channel vibrant. Yep, I made a mistake there, didn't I? It keeps my channel vibrant. And if you like what you see, hit the notifications button, because that way you'll see more of the posts that I do. And I've been trying to post on a regular basis here, so it helps you stay tuned. What I did was I put the rotor on before that little lip of the side plate, so I'm just going to pull this up enough to give me the clearance to go do that. Now I can put the rotor back on. No harm, no foul. That's where pictures help, right? So if you got stuck there and said, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" Well, here's what Dennis did, right? I'll put that screw back in. What did that take? About a minute to correct, maybe. But yeah, keep track of what it is that you're doing. But please subscribe if you like what you're seeing, and you'll see more, and you'll learn how to do not only this type of a reel, but I pretty much take all kinds of reels on. Whatever shows up in my shop, I generally will try and do a video on if I haven't done one before. Yeah, I do a lot of saltwater conventional reels. We're on the northeast seaboard here, so I do see a lot of that. I also see a lot of large reels like this because we do a lot of surf fishing. But I do see bass reels, I do see freshwater reels, and I give you the opportunity to see how to service them if and when they come into my shop. So please subscribe, hit those notifications. If you have any comment, if you have a question about this reel or any reel in general, I try to respond to as many of those as I can. I've been doing pretty good on that. And I welcome you to leave a question. You might be stuck on a reel. Maybe you can't figure out how to get a side plate off like we were just talking about here. Leave that question. Let me know the model of your reel, and I'll try and help you there. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be serviced, well, I do that by mail too. You heard me a little bit earlier with my thank you to the first responders. Just contact me on the business card that follows. I'll give you the repair information. And of course, my offer to the first responders is that I will tune up or repair your favorite reel for no charge. So take advantage of that, please. All right, I think we're done now. We've got the case tightened. All we need to do is put the handle on then. This handle's had a little bit of dryness to it, so I'm going to put some oil onto that screw hole here just to keep that screw from freezing. And we can go ahead and put this side in. This is a through shaft, so the screw handle will keep this tight. So folks ask, how frequently should they tune up a reel? And my general advice, wow, look at that. Woohoo! My advice is to do that on an annual basis. Even if it's just been sitting in your closet, in your garage, in your shed, on your boat, whatever, and not being used, greases evaporate, oils evaporate, pieces rust. In this case, pieces rust because of the humidity. So just take it on an annual basis. Do what we're doing here. It doesn't take that long. What does it take, 15, 20 minutes? I don't know, whatever this has been. It takes a little longer when you're doing the filming of it and when you're running into issues with that bearing and so on. But it just doesn't take that long. It's time well spent. All right, put that click ratchet back on. Get it pressed into that little collar there. That click ratchet is going to make a noise. There's a little clicker here. It's going to make a noise when your spool back spools. And then we have the two of these things that we pried off earlier. I can assure you they're going to go on a little bit easier. So those are back on. And now all we have to do is service the drag and give it a test drive. So there's a round clip here that's held in place by a groove. I'm just trying to find out where the split is. The split's over here. It's kind of salt packed, so it's a little bit harder to figure that out. I'm going to find my trusty spike here. What you want to do is just slip a small bladed screwdriver, or in this case I'm going to use my little tip here again. Pull that out. Just like that, you can see part of that. And this is a spring clip, so please be careful. These things do tend to shoot. I think we have felt washers in here in a big stack. I'm not sure, so let's go find out. I'll pull all of these out here. Yep, we have felt washers. Nothing wrong with felt washers. High-end reels use felt washers. You can find felt washers on the earlier editions of the Penn Fierce, and you can find them on the Shimano's. Nothing wrong with them. You just need to keep them lubricated so that they don't stick together, and that's what we're going to do here. So these are doubling up here. Interesting. I don't know if I've seen this configuration before, but these are doubles. All right, so what we want to do, we've got 3 felt washers here. We got 3 metals essentially. You want to use oil to keep these lubricated. So just a good drink of oil around. We're going to take one of these and put them into the bottom of the hole here. You want to make sure that cavity is clean. It is clean. I've kind of checked that out. Put the first of that washer in. Put the second one in. The stuff is kind of sticking to me there. Put the second washer in. I guess we have a double eared washer here. Put the next felt washer in. Put that double up top, and then we'll put the cap washer in. And then you should have the groove sitting here now. So we work this back in. Start on one side, start away from those caps. Get one side seated into the groove. Hold the spring washer and just pull it around. And eventually that thing is going to snap in. And that's when you'll know you're properly seated. Which we're properly seated. Okay, all we have to do is put that back on. I'm going to use our tension adjuster knob down. So Herbert, your reel, take that line off. You've got fresh bearings here. This thing is going to last a long time. Just take the line off and replace that, and your service is basically going to be complete. All right, see we're tight there. I can't move it. If you back it up, you can spin it. That's the way a drag is supposed to work. You can hear that little click going in the background. Let's give it a test run. Spool on. Little noise on the handle here. That's to be expected. Hit that with some... We're probably going to run out before the session runs out here. There you go. The only click, click, click you're hearing now is this little monofilament tag. Let's get that off. There you go. We still got that monofilament kind of rubbing. All right, there you go. And just make sure that our bail is working now. It is. And that's it. That's the Shakespeare Longcast Sigma 70. That's how you take it apart. You service it, and in this case we got bonus coverage because we showed you, one, how to free a stuck bearing, but if the stuck bearing is still bad, how to replace both. And I would tell you again, it probably was a little bit harsh on this side here in terms of banging it out with a Phillips head screwdriver. Be careful, it's a plastic case, it will crack. But I kind of used the footing there to push it through, and it's one way to do it. All right, so appreciate everybody watching. Again, if you're a first responder, I know you're humble. I know you folks don't think you're doing a major service. You are, and it would be my pleasure to work on one of your reels as a thank you. So just please contact me with my email. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.